Hello, hi, it's Henry the Computer Guy, and you're welcome to our lesson number 36. And in today's lesson, we are actually going to be talking about the system startup and configuration. Remember, previously we talked about computer hardware, and we said that these are specifically the physical or the tangible components of a computer. So now, having looked at our computer hardware, we want to see how we can set up our system to become functional, how we can configure or arrange all the components for us to come up with a complete working computer system or functional computer system. So let's begin right away. They're telling us that system startup refers to the process of setting up all the operating programs of a computer. For example, the operating system and other programs that you have, section by section until completed and ready to operate. So that process we are going to pass through to set up all the programs that we need our computer to use is what we call the system startup. Then when we talk about system configuration or the SC, it refers to how computer components are arranged and how its options are set. So specifically, configuration in this manner is how components are arranged to make up the computer system. And it is actually divided into either the hardware configuration or the software configuration. So don't confuse them. So it can either be configuring the hardware or configuring our software. So you will hear some people or sometime they will be talking about, let's say, hardware configuration and software configuration. Let's continue. And they're telling us that assembling a computer system. We want to see how we can assemble our computer system when it is functional. We've connected this one to the other one, we've connected the other one to the other one, so that is actually what we are going to be looking at. So they're telling us that at the beginning of this chapter, you looked at hardware devices, which can be categorized as input. For example, the mouse and the keyboard, mouse and keyboard, microphone and camera. Then we talked about the output devices, those ones that can help us to display or convey the processed data to the user, whereby we can have the monitor, we can have the printer, the projector, the speakers. Then we talked about the storage devices, and these ones store data or retain data. For example, the hard disk, the flash disks, the compact disks. Then we talked about the processing hardware. These ones help us to convert data to something that has meaning, let's say information. And we have an example as a CPU, which is the central processing unit. So they are telling us that some of these devices are summarized in our figure 2.2. We are going to yet see that figure 2.2. We continue. But before we talk about our figure 2.2, let's first talk about what we call a computer system. What is a computer system? A computer system is actually defined as a combination of components that will make our computer to operate. Remember, a system is a connection of more than one item that help us to accomplish a certain goal. They are all towards accomplishing a certain goal. That makes it a system. So our computer system is specifically defined as the combination of all those components that will make our computer to operate. What are they? For example, we can have examples as the hardware. These are the physical or the tangible components of a computer. So you cannot use only the hardware and the computer becomes functional. You need to install softwares on it such that the hardware can be dilated. Therefore, we have the software. These are programs that tell a computer what to do. Where we have the system and the application software. So you might be having the hardware, you're not having the software, or you might be having the software but you're not having the hardware. The system is not going to be operational. Another one, we can have the humanware. These are the users of the system, the people who design the softwares and the people who make the hardware. At times we call them the humanware or the users. They can as well be categorized as the ordinary users and the professional users. Those with little knowledge and those with let's say those who have undergone the training, respectively, the ordinary and the professional. Then we have what we call the data. Actually, we have what we call the unprocessed data and the processed data, the one we always call the information. Other procedures also, the guidelines that we follow as we are using our system. That can as well be called the procedures. They have not included it here. That makes up our computer system. Specifically, the major are the users, the hardware, and the software. As you see in the diagram here, we have the user, the human being, the one trying to use the system becomes the user. Then the hardware, physical, tangible components are the ones we call the hardware. Then lastly, the programs on our computer that direct the operation of the hardware are the ones we call the software. That is what we call a computer system in brief. We continue and look at the figure 2.2 they told us to look at. And they're telling us that assembling a computer system. Remember, we have now looked at a computer system and we know it. So we want to see how we can assemble it to become functional. You have the, let's say, the socket. You have other components. How are you going to assemble them to come up with a functional computer? But before that, let's first of all identify some of the components we have here. First of all, we have the socket. You want to connect to power, we have the socket here. We have the system unit, where all components, for example, we can connect the monitor to our system unit. We have the keyboard, we can use it to enter characters. Then we have the VGA. You're seeing it down here. It is the VGA, Video Graphics Array. That cable that will be connected to the monitor and the system unit. It transfers the graphics, for example. We'll be able to see the images or the information after connecting our VGA to the system unit. Then we have the HDMI. If you have not used the HDMI, or if you have not been using, let's say, the VGA, you can use what we call the HDMI cable, which is the high definition multimedia interface. That's how it looks like. You can connect it to your, let's say, projector, to your computer. It transfers that information. Or you can connect it to, again, your TV. You connect it to your computer to see or to be displaying the items which are appearing on your computer to take them on, let's say, on another monitor. That is what we call the HDMI. We can have our monitor where we shall be viewing our components. We have the mouse will be used for selecting items. Then we can have the UPS up here, which is the uninterruptible power supply. This is in front and this is behind. So actually the UPS has what we call a battery inside. It is always charged whenever the power is on, and whenever power goes off, it provides us with the time, for example, for saving and shutting down the computer normally. Then we also have our power cables here, many of them, that we are going to be using to connect our components. I think we have actually analyzed the components we have here. So we want to see how we can connect them to come up with a functional computer. Let's continue. Assembling a computer system is what we are on now. Now they are telling us that when these devices are connected together, those devices we have looked at, they make a computer system. For a computer system to work well, the above hardware devices must be connected properly. So for you to have a functional and correct working computer system, all the components we have seen previously have to be connected well or properly. For instance, a keyboard, a mouse, a monitor, I think we now know how these components look like, should be connected to the system unit. The system unit and the monitor connected to the power, either directly to the socket or through the UPS. Remember, I told you if you don't have a UPS, you can connect your computer directly. But if you have a UPS, it is supposed to be connected in between the socket and the computer. Remember, for it has a battery. It will keep on powering your computer even if power has gone off for a certain amount of time. Maybe 15 to 45 minutes. It goes on depending on the type of UPS that you bought. Are we together? Then they're telling us that If you are setting up a newly purchased computer, you'll probably find a how-to guide or user guide in the packaging that includes step-by-step details. Remember previously we talked about what we call a user manual. When you buy a component, packaging, inside they will put for you a how-to guide or a user manual, which can guide you to specifically connect or use the component step by step. So I think we are not green here. We are actually having some knowledge about it because we talked about it in the previous lessons. So if you have not watched those lessons, I beg you to go back and watch them. However, even if it does not include instructions, you can still set up the computer in just a few easy steps. So even if you're not having that user guide, you can actually set up your computer. We continue. We have an activity 2.3. Remember, we are under chapter 2 and it is activity 3. That's why they are calling it 2.3. Assembling a computer system. And for this case, we are now talking about the desktop computer. Not any other computer, but a desktop. With guidance from your teacher, assemble a computer system from its various parts provided in the computer lab. Assuming that you have all the components we have looked at, you can now set up your computer. You can make reference to the guidelines below. That means that before setting up the other computer or connecting them or assembling them, you can first of all look at the guides we're having down here. Check whether all the devices required are available. You're going to connect that computer, make sure that every component that you need is in place. Number 2, locate the monitor cable. It will usually be the VGA or the DVI, video graphics array, or the digital visual interface cable. That means that you will connect it to your monitor and connect it to the system unit. So they are telling us that VGA cable will often have blue color to make them easier to identify. I think we looked at that one already. Then connect one end of the cable to the monitor port on the back of the computer case and the other end to the monitor. That means that you're going to get your system unit and the monitor. So connect one end on the other end and one end on this end of the system unit and one end on the monitor. Then handle or hand tighten the plastic covered screws on the monitor cable to secure it. That means that after plugging it there, you have to tighten them such that it becomes firm. Then number 4, connect other devices critically looking at the port types. If you're saying that, let's say the port is USB, which is the universal serial bus, look for where the USB is. If let's say it is another type, let's say PS2, look for where the PS2 is. If it is another type, let's say network, look for what you need to connect. That means that every component has to be connected to its specific port. And remember, we said that a port is a point at which a peripheral connects to a computer. So you have to look for those ports that you need to connect to. We continue. We are still on to that. And they're telling us that number 4, locate the power cable. Plug the first power supply cable into the back of the computer case. So you're going to look at the behind of your computer or system unit, then you look for where you're going to connect the power cable, and then into a surge protector. Then using the other cable, connect the monitor to the surge protector also. So you're going to all connect them to the surge protector. Finally, plug the surge protector into a wall outlet. You may need to turn the surge protector on if it has a power switch. Remember, we said that we have a UPS. Even the UPS has what we call the button that you can put on. Then you connect it to the main socket. Now, they're telling us that note, if you do not have a surge protector, you can plug the computer directly into the wall socket. So it is not always a must that you can have a UPS or a surge protector. So if you're not having it, then you can connect your computer to the main wall outlet. However, this is not recommended as electrical surges can damage your computer. So you need to buy the surge protector. For example, you can buy a UPS such that it can prevent some of the problems that would have occurred to your computer or components. Number 2, or question 2, explain any steps followed to assemble a computer system. In one above, remember you have been assembling the computer, so you're going to help us to explain the key steps that you have followed when you're assembling it. Then lastly, what precautions must be taken while assembling a computer system? For example, you have to switch the component off before assembling it. Are we together? And others as you're going to be answering them. So thank you for watching. It's been Henry the Computer Guy. So if you feel that you have actually liked my lesson, you can click the subscription button and share the link to other friends who might need this content. Bye bye. I sign out. See you in the next video.